Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again to another story in the series called Macabre Minds, written by Auntie Hart. Remember to check out the links below, show love to the author, like, comment, and subscribe. Story 6, Crick, Crack, Tappity Tap. It was totally unassuming, like a stranger dressed in black at a relative's funeral. This person went unnamed, but you somehow still knew that he belonged in his crow suit with his disconsolate expression. I guess I should have not let my curiosity get the better of me. Suppose that I should have just let the demon slumber in peace. But I am a soul that likes to pry into the depths of hell just to see what horrors I can find. I suppose that's why I loved my town of Roncoma so much. Darkness settled over the town perpetually, for the fog that rolled off of Lake Roncoma was continuous and unrelenting. The town itself was small, always shadowed with hazes of gray, forever seeming to drizzle like the angels above were bleeding. It was enough to warn even the bravest soul to be wary. One could even know what lurked just in front of their vision, blocked by the menacing mist. It didn't help that Roncoma boasted cases of missing people frequently. Females always found drowned in the lake with horrifying bruises and no DNA evidence to sentence the perpetrator. But the worst were the eyes. My friend Cortland and I would head down to the lake as the police drug their nets through it, searching for the newest missing girl. And we scared ourselves silly when we saw the look of utter terror etched on their victims' faces, awfully indelible. It was as if their eyelids were non-existent, their mouths open in a dead scream that could hear echo through the wind on stormy nights. And there was always something even more disturbing about the woman. They all had been changed to look like someone else. One girl had different eyes sewed up into her sockets. One girl had over-the-top makeup that had smeared in the water. And she was wearing a wig of luxurious blonde hair. And the other, in one of the most horrific cases, had another girl's face stapled on top of her own, with only lipstick to try and make the scene a little less gruesome. All of the girls also had bones broken at odd, though proportionate angles. The police never stopped looking for the killer, but they also never stopped finding the bodies. If only they could find the girls that were still missing. And to top it off, over 100 males had drowned in the lake. Not one girl had claimed by the water's murky hands of murder. Of course, it was the spirit of the deceased girls dragging the boys down to suffer the same fate. It was just superstition, but still, the police were always on the lookout for a male perpetrator. There was so much death and obscurity persisting in the whispers of the fog. So, of course, there was the game all the local children would play. Crick, Crack, Tappity Tap. Cortland and I would play the game growing up on the search for trouble. We would hop out on the boat, stolen of course, with my trusty pocket knife, which easily sliced through the anchoring rope, and paddled onto the middle of the lake. And then we waited. The waiting was especially the annoying part, especially for two impatient adolescent boys. But then the fogs would start to thicken and thicken, and then I couldn't see Cortland's freckled face. I was just caught in the empty white sheet in front of me. And then, the noise. First, a crick, then a crack of the boat, followed by tapping of undistinguishable origin. But mostly, we figured it came from just underneath the vessel. Tappity tap. But Cortland and I were college students now, majoring in biology, and the lessons were taught by the famous Robin Tenslow. He went on about the beauty of human biology, almost eccentrically, and his passion for anatomy definitely rubbed off on all of his students. He was a good teacher and mentor, forever there to help even after the sky had long turned black and bags of tiredness dragged at the skin underneath his eyes. Even I had taken him up on offers for help, relishing in his power of tutoring and conveying knowledge. However, it was hard not to doodle drawings to Cortland outlining the doctor's outlandish looks, and it was impossible not to laugh at the way he slurred his speech. Only half of his mouth really operable. He claimed a boating accident took most of his muscular functions, and he would say this as he wheeled about in his wheelchair, staring at our work with curiosity ever present in his strange, icy blue eyes. A boating accident had taken everything from him: his independence, his non-Quasimodo looks. But damn it, if he was still going to live in his expensive boathouse just on the shore of Lake Roncoma. People have put me down, he'd say, but I have always held my head high. That's why learning biology is so important. You can always know how to best your opponents. Cortland and I did enjoy his classes, even though it was sometimes more fun to mock the doctor behind his stooped back. Towards our senior year of college, that's when things began to change. No, the fogs of insanity still filled our town with tales of murder and ghosts. But Cortland grew more and more aloof. He had fallen in love. Her name was Adele Lancaster. She was quite pretty, I guess, and she had a cute, nerdy way of talking that raised more than just goosebumps on Cortland's body. But she had one flaw that he couldn't seem to quite overcome. He was friends with Natalie Winters. Now, Nat was the talk of the biology department. She was a grad student with top marks, a brain that would make Einstein blush, and a quietness about her that bordered on the psychotic. She was smart, so there was no doubt about that, but her complete lack of social skills and the fact she was openly sleeping with Mr. Tenslow caused us to shun her away like a particularly bad specimen on decayed squid. In fact, the smell seemed to permeate her body, formaldehyde and perjury, the same aroma that the doctor wore, linking them as couples on a more metaphysical level. It was unnerving, especially since the doctor was so well liked. It was as if she had snared him with her brilliant mind, cunning, conniving, until he was forced to take her home at night. Could have not been the wonderful Tenslow's idea. So, Nat became the object of bullying at the school. Even I participated, tripping her in the halls, accidentally cutting a gallbladder open too close to her face. It was funny at the time. It was less funny when Adele disappeared. "It's that freak, I tell you," Corlin said to me, just in earshot of Nat, who was sitting, skinning a cat from the next table. Hours lay untouched as we discussed the circumstances surrounding Cortland's despair. Something isn't right. Adele went to hang out with Nat last night and never came back. Well, the police investigated Nat. They found nothing, I said. In Roncoma, the fog conveyed the news of the small town better than any mail carrier. Just a few nosy neighbors, and the whole town knew everything. Wait, what about the doctor? Haven't they investigated him yet? Why? Because Fat Nat's practically living with the guy? Nah, I think they checked him out too, but found nothing. What? Bullshit. Adele should have come home last night. Corlin bordered on hysterics. Love of his life, gone like every other meaningless girl in Roncoma. The doctor's reputable. He's never done anything wrong, I said, absent-mindedly jabbing a few pins into a tortoiseshell cat. I wondered if they had kittens. Yeah, except for torturing us all with his appearance. Why are you siding with those weirdos, Gunner? Something is off. It has something to do with Nat. I just know it. Alright, if you say so, Court. But I trust the doctor. And you should too. He's a good guy, man. Nothing's going on. But Cortland was a hasty individual. I was always the one to have suggested going out on ghostly nightly adventures. But he was the one who always took the lead. That's why, leaving the biolab relatively clean, Cortland tripped Nat in the hall, causing a whoop of laughter to echo about the building. Cortland didn't apologize, but he still helped her pick up some of the books she was carrying. I knew he had some sinister plan operating in the back of his mind. When he walked away with a smug look on his face, I could only guess. His intentions were a little darker than I thought. When we were back at the apartment, he spilled his secret faster than the butcher could slice open a pig. He seemed disturbingly amused, and he tipped out his backpack onto the couch. The contents, which made themselves visible notebooks with the sticker which read, "Property of Natalie Winters." Dude, why the hell did you steal her notebooks? Because the bitch is smart. She's always writing in these things, so I assume she'll miss them once they're just ash. And Cortland took out his lighter, with a menacing smile, and ran a finger over the fire a few times. Dude, you're so strange sometimes. Do you think if we roast marshmallows over it, we'll catch the crazy? Probably, but let's not chance it. I picked up a dime notebook and opened it up, wandering at its yellowing pages. Suddenly, the room seemed to chill. The condensation outside our windows appeared to thicken, as though to signal the approach of a malignant demon. Dread filled my stomach, and that was just because I was looking at a page filled with chemical formulas. I narrowed my eyes, just wondering at the sense of terror. Court, look at this. If he sensed something ominous about the notebook, he didn't display it. So? It's a bunch of biochemistry shit. You know I don't get that stuff, smartass. No, I don't get this either. The proteins were arranged to defy the normalcy of life. They were set in such a way that resisted explanation. Odd curves and bonds that I had never observed before in my textbooks. I should have ignored my inquisitiveness. I should have just gathered up Nat's books and burned them instantly like Corlin suggested. But I turned to the next page. Nat's curly handwriting filled the pages. I glanced over one of them with macabre fascination. It read, "I served Robin his coffee this morning, just how he likes it. 2 teaspoons of sugar, just a dash of creamer." As black as could be, he sipped it, commenting on how the coffee was deliciously bitter. I ran a finger through his hair. It was handsome and dignified, the way it was thinning. After he was done with his coffee, he gently grasped my arm and drew my blood. I wonder how this came to be my morning routine, but as I looked up into Robin's blue eyes, I knew. He said that they came back abnormal, but I didn't feel any different. The only difference was a dissimilar scream that echoed through his house, unlike the others, new and frightened, but still full of hope. I told him that my skin had yet to turn pale, and that I had yet to experience anything out of the ordinary. But he gave me that cold look he sometimes gets, the one that reminds me of my place. I still worry, and I worry for him as well. In class, when he seemed to slur his words and stumble on phrases a little more than normal, I almost panicked. When his teeth began to chatter a little, a nervous habit of his, which perhaps would make my classmates question his sanity, I made a show of knocking over some test tubes to distract everyone. Of course they laughed. It was such a good performance. I wanted to tell it all to Robin, but that didn't come. He didn't come to bed tonight. Of course, he had to tend to the rattlers again. But I'll wait to love him when he comes back. It was dated just a few weeks ago. Corlin read it over my shoulder and snorted. She's such a freak. She mentions the rattlers. What do you think those are? Like hell if I know. The guy's sick. I knew it. That's why he's such an ugly bastard. He wasn't the cause of Adele's disappearing. I'd eat our cat. Yeah, you just do that, I said, punching him lightly in the arm. Besides, he might be a little more creepy than we thought, but he's still a good guy. Remember how he tortured you? Or he tutored you last semester so you could pass biochem? Fine. Then I turned the page. I made Robin his coffee, he checked my blood, and then I read the paper. Mary McKenna was in there. Just another missing person listed next to a list of the girls. I kind of liked Mary. She wasn't nice to me, but she was never mean. I told that to Robin, and he got defensive. He reminded me of that time that the group of girls had dumped glue all over my hair. And I remembered Mary had laughed. I had almost forgotten about that. Robin called me beautiful, and his kiss was as blissful as always. His touch made me squirm more than usual this morning. Who cared about Mary anyways? She was just another cruel human. Besides, the rattlers were quiet long enough, and Robin and I were able to make love like before. I love Robin. He loves me. Corlin then said, "Dude, this is weird. Not to mention disgusting. I thought Nat was sleeping with the doctor for better grades, but he actually loves the perv." Yeah, it says here Mary McKenna was found dead in the lake. You went to high school with us, remember? Yeah, we did a history project together. She was pretty. We were silent after that, processing what we had just read, and then Cortland snatched the book out of my hands. The hell? He began to flip through the pages, pausing slightly on the ones that had diagrams of distorted human anatomy, and one that actually had a picture of Dr. Tinslow, doodled anatomically correct hearts surrounding it. He finally stopped on one of the pages towards the end, and he swore when he read it. He shoved it back at me with disgust written over his freckled face. Ugh, I really didn't want to be reminded of it. Robin screamed at me last night. He shoved pictures of girls at me, the ones that he said had tormented him growing up. There were so many of them, so many people that had rejected him due to his lack of social skills and less than par looks. I don't know why he had to bring up this accident, and that his looks had been an object of scorn ever since he was a freshman in high school. But he did, and I think I ended up crying. I tried to remind him that I found him beautiful, and he calmed down slightly, enough to give me a bit of an explanation. Adele had always been nice to me. She had never been one to torment my own looks and social awkwardness. I thought she was genuinely nice, but she rejected Robin after school on Monday, and nobody rejects Robin. I was a bit peeved that he had gone after the person I considered a friend, but he said that she had called him such terrible names that my blood began to boil. It hit me that Adele might not have been a good person after all. The Rattlers were especially bad that night. They always were when they were new and going through the changes. Adele was very pretty. I was always aware of that, and how Robin looked at her. His appetite for pretty women was never satiated, but I knew he was always hungrier for those that rejected him. That's why I loved him so much. I would never reject him. Besides, I wouldn't miss Adele that much. And if the Rattlers would help avenge those who had done us wrong, then I wouldn't miss her at all. Shit, Cortland said. Pounded his fist into the wall, causing the cat to scurry out of the room. You don't know Adele's dead? And Cortland didn't say anything, but a pained expression came over his face. I flipped to the last page of the notebook. It was dated just a few days after Adele's appearance. Robin took my blood this morning, smiled at me. He said that I was absolutely perfect, enough to become a Rattler myself. Of course I was nervous, but he just said that he wanted to make me so pretty that no one would be able to ever criticize me again. He gave me the injections. My skin grew pale. Finally, it grew pale. He broke some of my bones so that my arms reassembled the crooked beauty of a cherry tree. I'll admit that the pain was unimaginably horrible, and I was a bit angry when he gave me Adele's black hair, but he had a thing for black, so I didn't complain. He is saving me from this horrible world. Robin can't stop smiling at me. He says I'm so beautiful now, that I will help him become a god. He says that we will become saints for the forgotten and mocked. All I can think about how Jimmy Cortland called me stupid the other day, told me that it's my fault Adele's gone. All I can think about is what kind of sounds he'll make as he drowns in the lake. I didn't show this page to Cortland, but I instead put the notebook down, feeling tainted and poisoned. Burn them, I said. Cortland and I stood in front of the fire, the heat warming us subtly as the fog enveloped our bodies. I could hardly see his face through the clouds of white and black, but he looked downright miserable. He hadn't said anything since he had read the entry about Adele, so I, like always, took initiative. We've got to do something. Like what, Gunner? Adele's gone and you know it. That bitch and the doctor killed her. She's gone. Court, something odd is going on. Something I think we can't understand yet. So, what do you propose we do, huh? I thought about how Cortland's name had appeared in Nat's journal, and I worried about my suggestion as I made it. I think we should go to Dr. Tenzo's house. The boat? Why on earth would we do that? That's where Nat lives. Maybe we can question her, or find out what the doctor did to her. Maybe we can call the police then. Cortland wrapped his arms around his body. The steamy atmosphere was brisk. It was like he was trying to hold in his feeling from the stealthy fog. And say what? Oh, we found this notebook that had some weird shit written in it about some of the missing girls, but we burned it because we got scared. You're just gonna have to trust us and the doctor, Nat, are freaks. A brilliant idea to burn the evidence, Sherlock. Hey, it was your idea in the first place. But I stopped myself from saying anything further. I had read about the mysterious rattlers. I had seen those chemical symbols and diagrams. I had looked dead into the drawings of girls with contorted limbs, colored with vibrant pixels. Even the girls in the drawings appeared horrified, but words like beautiful and stunning outlined the pictures. Look, tell you what, I'll go by myself, but I really think we need to go to the boathouse. Call it intuition, call it a hunch. Like hell I'm gonna let you go alone. You're really serious about this? Let's go. I think Cortland was aching for action, for something to do to diminish the thought of Adele's death. And he led the way to where kids would throw eggs on Halloween and where people pried just to get a look at the oddness of the doctor's hideousness and genius. Down to the lake, down to the boathouse. The house floated just on the shore of Lake Roncoma, swaying slightly as though it breathed with the current of the water. It moved as though to say, I'm waiting. Enter the gates of hell. The fog hugged it. Close friends, even though it rotted the wood and caused the roof to sag in the northwest corner. The windows were boarded up, the plywood promising that no one was to peer into the doctor's life, even though people tried. Graffiti clothed the house wooden frame, announcing to the world that Robin Tenzo and Natalie Winters were both creatures of a different world. Cortland then said, this is a stupid idea, walking straight up to the house, cloaked by the mist that rolled off the lake. I followed just right behind them, a little more trepidation to my steps. Come on, there's something going on here. I don't even care that the doctor's our teacher anymore. Don't you want to know what happened to Adele? Don't bring that up, Gunner. That was as close to a warning Corlin had ever given me. Usually, he just punched me in the arm or face, but his dangerous words caused me to hesitate more than his fist. We were quiet for the rest of the journey, and only when we were up close enough for the water to lap at our feet and for our hands to rest on the decaying wood did we realize something was off. The door's open. It hung loosely on its frame, screaming its demise into the breeze. Some of the boards on the windows had even fallen off, giving us a look to the pitch beyond. It began to drizzle. Lock. Corlin did not falter a second before delving into the blackness of the boathouse. The light switch rested just on the inside of the door, begging me to flick it on. The luminosity faded in and out for a moment before giving us the gift of sight. I wish it hadn't. The place was in complete disarray. Couches were overturned and destroyed as though a pack of wild dogs had ripped into them, and broken glass littered the floor. Formaldehyde formed a pungent odor in the air, and I almost lost it when I noticed glass jars that contained human body parts were littered on the floor. "Shit," I said. Corlin was a little more composed. The doctor was a scientist. Human waste was his specialty. I kicked through some of the debris on the floor, noticing an overturned coffee pot and pages upon pages of notebook paper that had been ripped up, tossed around. I picked up a piece of paper, noting the odd scientific terms, and threw it back on the floor. "Damn, this place is a mess," I said. Corlin ignoring my obviousness, and he just called out to the wreckage, "Doctor, Natalie, come out wherever you are." When nothing met his jest, he just shrugged at me. "Now what, Gunner?" Looks like somebody had just trashed this place. I don't think they're here." God, you're so dull sometimes. Of course they're not here. They're probably up and left because people have been prying too much. Look, they're gone. Wait, were those tears I saw in Corlin's eyes? Was that the ghost of his lover I saw in those brown depths? Anger surged through my veins. The boathouse had been destroyed, and this in turn had destroyed my friend. Come on, I have an idea. But now, Gunner. We had been to the boathouse enough to point and laugh at the doctor that I knew the canoe rested just beside the house's frame. When I set about untying it, Corlin began to laugh, dry and hollow and devoid of any humor. It raised goosebumps in my arms. Are we really going to play this game? Look, lost woman, broken limbs and rattlers, a missing doctor, bullied girl, and their trash house with limbs and eyes that stared in pride. Alright, here we go. Crick, crack, tappity, tap. Corlin and I jumped into the canoe. The middle of the lake was as cold as the dead, and the rain sliced our skin like knives. We both shivered in the boat. It was almost like we were children again, waiting with thumping hearts for a noise, sounds through the falling rain. Except we weren't grinning with anticipation this time. We were both glowering with anguish. Corlin expressed how ridiculous I was being, but I just shrugged his comment off. What else were we supposed to do? Besides, I was beginning to think I was being quite stupid. I was a biology student, and despite the odd things I had seen in Nat's notebook, I was still supposed to be reasonable. To think that Nat and the doctor had discovered ways to alter the human anatomy was just preposterous. Dr. Tenslow was our teacher. He was supposed to be the good guy. But that didn't explain what we had uncovered. In the canoe, we had found more jars that contained byproducts of the human anatomy. Fingers wearing nail polish, eyes that seemed bigger than the normal formaldehyde, and even a head that had been scalped, eyes cut out and lips removed. The only thing remaining was a smiley face drawn on by a Sharpie. Cortland threw it into the lake with disgust. I'm sorry. I said, I'm sorry, Cortland. This is absurd. We need to go to the police. That's still not quite sensible, but anything's better than this. Come on, let's go. That's when I heard it, as Cortland grabbed for the paddle. Just a slight oddity of sound, differing from the rain and lapping of waves. Just something so subtle that I might have imagined it, but still, my heart leapt as I heard the boards of the canoe shift. Crick. Stop, Cortland, I said. Cortland didn't hear me over the next sound. Crack. We both stopped and stood still, our bodies frozen. Time frozen, except for the dropping of rain and slight shifting of the canoe. A rock formed in my stomach, and my heart began to pound. When we were children, the fear was fun, but now I was just truly and undeniably scared. Crick, crack. I watched as Cortland's face contorted, and his eyes widened to horror, the size of the moon, and his mouth dropped open as he stared at the spot just above my shoulder. Don't turn around. I knew not to turn around. Of course, I turned around. The two creatures that were clawing their way into the canoe were humanoid in form, with pale skin that glistened white in the starlight. Both were naked, revealing rippling muscles, female forms. Their teeth were elongated into shark-like proportions, and their eyes, bleached blue, shone menacingly at me and my friend. One of the creatures lifted herself onto the boat, her black hair whipping around her taut face, and the other creature joined her. The other creature was much more grotesque in form. Her face slightly lopsided, her back bent at least 2 different angles of impossibility. But she still stood without aid of a wheelchair. Both were wearing makeup and looks of complete terror. Their stomachs were empty, and hunger glistened in their eyes as they saw me, Cortland, trapped like rabbits snared. They took one step towards us, and that's when the sound we heard echoed louder into the night. Crick, crack. It was the sound of their bones as they moved to greet us. There was nothing to do. We were trapped in the middle of the lake with these two creatures with gaping mouths and dead expressions. The girl with black hair came over first, her bones groaning with every step, her extended nails gripped at Cortland's throat. As her claws hit bone, I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. She had kept true to her promise in her notebook. Blood spewed out of Cortland's throat as he screamed, and I yelled myself as I grabbed at Natalie, desperately trying to pry her off my friend's buckling form. He just threw me off of her back with unfeasible strength, and the other girl grabbed at my legs and twisted them both. My piercing screams mixed with my friend's gurgled ones, and pain seared from my legs to my spine, and I could see the white of bone shining on the body deck canoe. My head started to spin. I reached out lamely towards Cortland, who was now lying next to me, crimson spewing from his neck, light in his eyes slowly fading, and both creatures hovering over us, claws extended, till I heard the next noise. Tap, tap. It came from I don't know where. As my vision swam with spots, I thought I could see hands reaching over the side of the canoe, rocking it back and forth violently, shooting my legs with even more pain. The creatures let out a series of angry clicks, and they backed up to the side of the canoe as a girl came over the side. Her scalp was blindly white, and skin was missing from her face, body. The remaining flesh hung loose and flapped in the wind like a flag of victory. Her limbs too were bent and broken, and she crawled over to where Cortland lay, and she flung her body over him as though for protection. From what I realized very quickly as skeletons began to make their way over to the side of the canoe. We were the prey. I realized that now. The skeletons of the drowned woman were competing predators. There was so much white, so many creaking of bones and tapping of fingers against my body that I began to scream again. Skeletons swam in front of my face, their jaws meeting my own, ripping at flesh, and I desperately tried to drag myself away, crying tears in my open wounds. Natalie hovered over the scene like a vengeful god, watching as the skeletons began to tear me apart. Was that another boat I noticed just at the side of ours? Was that the laughter of a man that I knew? Glancing over, I noticed a mangled man standing in the boat, smiling with piercing blue eyes. I am the angel of death. No one thought I could do it. Well, look at me now and weep. I am God. And to think that I had thought so much of the doctor. I lamented as whiteness took a hold of my vision, as the decaying girl with no hair hung over my body. She said something and then she grasped me by the legs and dragged me out the canoe and into the water. I could momentarily see the skeletons of the girls reaching over the side of the boat, reaching towards me with bony fingers like broken branches of a tree. And Nat was hovering over in my vision as well, her face mangled, her black hair stolen, and her face once of victory. She had won. The doctor had won. I did lose consciousness as the icy lake hit my skin, and I regained it just briefly when I found myself on the shore of the Rocoma, the decaying girl right next to me. "Cortland?" I whispered, but she just shook her head. Adele just shook her head, and I saw her crying right before I was caught by the blackness again. I woke up in the hospital. What I found out was many days later, my parents hovering over me and crying as they stared at my dismembered face. I sat in a wheelchair as I told the police exactly what happened, that Dr. Tenslow and Natalie Winters had been killing the missing girls and had murdered my best friend too. But I think I lost credibility when I mentioned their monstrous appearances and the skeletons of the dead girls, now cannibalistic male flesh. It was ridiculous after all. Nat was such a good student, and the doctor was highly regarded not only in his field, but in the town for his intelligence. And when I told them that Adele Lancaster had saved me, that's when they put me in the mental hospital. But I know now that the world is full of more horrors than one can possibly imagine. I have stared death in the face, and it has crippled not only my body, but my very soul. Cortland is dead now, and I know Nat was fulfilling her wish with an army to punish those who had done her and her beloved wrong. But I had bullied her too. I was next. I had escaped, and in between the noose I tied up to my ceiling fan in my room when they let me out of the hospital in the claws of Satan's demons, I chose to slip the rope.